So Dr. Fauci went on CNN, and I bet he didn't expect to get pushback. I bet Dr. Fauci didn't expect that he was actually going to be confronted with actual science instead of the BS that he spews every time he's talking. So yeah. Dr. Fauci is the biggest liar from COVID. There's no bigger liar than Dr. Fauci. He lied about gain of function. He lied about funding gain of function, which gave us the virus. He lied about where the virus came from, and he called you a white supremacist. How does Cornell not see that that's what they do? They call anybody who goes against the establishment now a white supremacist. That's what they did if you said that the virus came from the Wuhan lab, which is where it came from, and it was funded by Dr. Fauci. He funded the research that gave us that virus, which means if you believe COVID killed millions and millions of people, he's a mass murderer on the level of Hitler. Unless you don't believe in science.
Oh.
So here he is, and he's confronted
by Michael Smerconish of all people.
Michael Smerconish.
He did not see that coming. Smerconish of all people, bringing up real things.
I want to say tip of the hat to Michael Smerconish.
Yeah,
great job he does here. Great job, Michael Smerconish, who I normally don't agree with. But here we are. I'll join with anybody to do good and nobody to do bad.
I mean, normally I say I have to take a Smerconish in the morning, but I'm going to hold off on one day for this great job he did.
So watch this.
On the screen. The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journalist Mayan Damasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about the N95 masks as opposed to the lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, he said. Well, what about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
So, by the way, that's not just any review. That's the gold standard of medical reviews, and the guy who did that review is the top guy in the world doing those kind of studies. So it's over. There is no medical evidence that masks work to stop an airborne virus like COVID. There never was before COVID, which is why Fauci and Rachel Maddow and everybody told you not to wear masks. And then Fauci said he lied when he told you not to wear masks. So he's already an admitted liar. But the lie was the second time when he told you masks work to stop the airborne virus. They don't.
Not even New York Times.
Not even the New York Times was
hiding this.
That's right. That was in the New York Times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means the jig is up now in Canada. They got people protesting putting masks back on in Vancouver. So they're getting different news, I guess. But
it's not science. And so here, Dr. Fauci, watch what he says back to this. So he just presents him with incontrovertible evidence from the gold standard of studies with the #1 study guy in the world doing this. And what does Dr. Fauci say back? Let's listen.
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual. When you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. But when you talk about as an individual basis of someone protecting themselves or protecting themselves from spreading it to others, there's no doubt that there are many studies that show that there is an advantage. When you took at the broad population level, like the Cochrane study, the data are less firm with regard to the effect on the overall pandemic. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about an individual's effect on their own safety. That's a bit different than the broad population level.
What?
So what he just said was gibberish. So what he's saying is, yes, masks don't work to stop the virus and the population level, but they do on the individual level. I have to ponder that. I guess it's like asking if God could make a rock so big, even he can't lift it. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to make you not think. That's what that is. This is nonsense. So this is from this doctor. He says, Kevin Bass, he says, this is nonsense, and here's why. To do science on masks, you have a masked group and an unmasked group. You compare the rate of infection in each group. This is called a randomized trial. This is how science is done.
Yeah, this is the most actually rigorous trial where I think they actually gave people, they didn't do it in America.
Wait, hold on.
Oh.
That's another study.
Yeah.
If the rate of infection is the same between the masked and non-masked groups, then masks don't work. This was what the studies on masks showed, that there was no difference in the masked group and the unmasked group.
What about individually, though? You know how groups are made of individuals, but somehow that's a different thing?
Now, Kurt, there is simply no such thing as scientific studies showing that masks work at an individual level. There's no such thing as that. I'm sorry. They test anyway. Fauci either doesn't understand how science works, or he is lying and making things up. It's the latter.
Yeah, no.
He's lying and making things up. It's really that simple. Fauci is saying gobbledygook in order to keep the idea of masks alive. Well, I'm waiting to see what Sam Harris thinks before I make up my mind.
That's going to be the final decider where Sam Harris lands on this one. Why? Okay. So I thought, now this is just what I thought. I mean, obviously, but I thought the whole mask thing was like a great way to make it scarier, so that you're like.
That's exactly what it is.
So why now?
So when the whole thing about masks is to induce fear, and I know that Fauci's thinking that, because when I was on with Dr. Drew, he told me he worked with Dr. Fauci during the AIDS crisis. Remember, Dr. Fauci was the bad guy during the AIDS crisis. If you remember that movie, the Dallas Buyers Club, Matthew McConaughey, I think he won the Oscar for that. And people forget the bad guy in that movie was Dr. Fauci. People forget that. So it's incredibly shameful for Fauci to abuse science in this way, but it's par for the course in the way he has communicated science throughout an entire pandemic. And what Dr. Drew told me, that during the AIDS crisis, when he was working side by side with Dr. Fauci told him the way you get people to do things is you induce fear. That fear is your most powerful tool, and you should use it. And that's what he did during COVID. They lied about the death rate from COVID. They said it was 3%. It's like, it's less than 1%. Less. So it's point something. The average age of death from COVID is 82 years old. The average life expectancy is 77. Bill Gates said that COVID had a very low fatality rate, and it affected mostly the elderly, just like the flu, but a little different. Fauci's lying to you now. He's been lied to, and nobody cares that they lied to them. Nobody in the Green Party cares that they were lied to. Cornel West doesn't care that he was lied to. No one cares.
Well, he didn't lose a business because he was locked down.
That's right.
All the people that it was fine for them, they're totally cool. They're like, just move on.
Like he doesn't see the problem that it sets a template for fascism going forward. And authoritarianism and forced medical treatments and censorship.
No, what? I think it's guys with Viking horns praying in the...
Okay. Good job, Michael Smerconish. Honest, tip of the hat. I'm really glad he did that.
I'm blown away, frankly.
I am blown away that happened on CNN. I can't believe that happened on CNN. I bet you Michael Smerconish got a talking to.
I should hope so.
I hope so. Hey, so come see us live on tour. We're going to be in Detroit. That's Rochester, Michigan, Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, where I went to college, Indianapolis, Levittown, New York, and Red Bank, New Jersey. Go to jimmydore.com for a list of all those shows.